After the rain of Estoril, we're here in Valencia under a blue sky, and it's perfect conditions for round 2 of the FIM CEV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship. Steve English and Fran Wild to guide you through the action here in the south of Spain. And Fran, this really is ideal conditions here in Valencia. As you can see there, blue skies, absolutely perfect.
Yeah, definitely a far cry from Estoril and the first round of the season, when obviously rain massively dictated the results on race day. So it's good for these guys. We've got a lot of rookies in the different categories as well, so great news for those guys getting some more dry track time, and at a track quite a lot of them know very well as well. So it should be some really good races that give us a bit of a better idea now about the championship this season. So here's the review from Estoril. As you can see, conditions were great.
Yeah, very much different conditions last time out in Estoril. You can see how tricky it was for the riders. A crash there for Salvador. But in the opening round of the season, it was a real shock to see Barry Baltas come through the field to be able to claim that victory. But at the front of the field, we could see a real tight battle between the leading 4 riders. It would eventually come down to a leading battle of 3 and then 2, and then eventually Baltas just stretching away at the front of the field. So here's the action from Estoril and those thrilling closing laps. Barry Baltas taking that opening season victory, and his first victory here in the CEV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship. The riders now making their way to the grid, and as you can see here at Valencia, the exact same track that we use at the MotoGP at the end of this season. And you can see there's 9 left-handers and 5 right-handers. And Fran, around this track, it's a real test and a real challenge for these riders, but this is a track that everyone on this grid knows pretty intimately at this stage.
Yeah, it is. Quite a lot of the guys use it for testing, and then obviously we have 2 visits to the track on the CEV calendar as well, so those who've already raced even in a different class maybe than they are this year have plenty of experience around here. And yeah, for us certainly it's a joy of a track, since that for commentators, like, we're sat just above pit lane, and for anyone in pretty much any seat in this entire place, you can see the whole track. Yeah. It's really pretty spectacular for that. A
real amphitheatre here in Valencia, and if you do get to come to one of the races here, whether it's the MotoGP at the end of the season or the final round of the CEV Championship, you can sit in the grandstand and see absolutely everything. And for these riders, they're just going to be looking forward pretty much to everything in the future as well, Fran, because this is the championship that really does set the tone for the rest of your career. This is the one where we start to see the real legends of Grand Prix racing in the future. If you look down the list of the former champions, whether it was in the 125 class or the the Moto3 class, you can see a real list of who's who up and down the Grand Prix grids. But as we ride on board with Billy Van Erde, the reigning Asian Talent Cup champion, we get a quick chance to be able to have a look at this Valencia circuit. This is taken from yesterday's practice sessions down in towards turn 1. This is a section where you can try and make some moves during the course of the race. You can dive down the inside, but a lot of riders are going to try and take the wide line. You can see a very wide line in front of us from Billy Van Erde's camera. But down in towards turn 2, this is the real overtaking opportunity. Point proven down the inside into turn 2. From this point onwards, though, you're all about trying to just set up for the first right-hander in a really long time down in towards turn 4. It's easy for the right-hand side of the tyre to be cold through this section of the lap. It's easy for you to have a crash through there. We see a lot of crashes there during, in particular, MotoGP winter testing. We see a lot of crashes down into there. Into turn 6, this is another opportunity to try and make a block pass. You can come down the inside there. You can see it's second gear for Billy Van Erde. We could see, particularly in the Moto2 races later today, guys down into first gear just try and get that bike stopped down in towards turn 6. Into turn 8, this is one of the few sections of the track where we've actually got quite a bit of a downhill run down in towards turn 8. From that point, you're just trying to set yourself up for the next 2 right-handers down in towards 9 and 10. And then we come through 10 and into 11, and again on the exit of 11, it's all about trying to get your weight over the front, control the wheelie. Not as much of an issue on the Moto3 bikes, but on the Moto2 bikes we'll have to keep an eye on the riders into that section. Uphill in towards the best corner on this racetrack, turn 13, this everlasting left-hander. The bigger bikes will end up spinning all the way through there. If you're on the Moto3 bikes, you can see a big wide line for Billy Van Erde. He'll be a lot tighter during the race, because that's where you can make that last lap move. Van Erde just using every into the track as he runs out over onto pit lane and then comes across the line. So that's a lap of the Valencia circuit. And Fran, just for all these riders here, it really is an action-packed lap, and the races, particularly in the Moto3 class, always a real thriller.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the things you mentioned during that onboard lap is you can't really get a sense of the fact that there are quite a few elevation changes. Obviously nothing too spectacular. Like at Kota a couple of weeks ago, first time I saw turn 1, it literally looks like a cliff. But here, you actually, when you walk around the track, you realise it isn't quite as flat as it looks. But yeah, I think these guys, it should be a good race here. Like you say, a few places to overtake, and we've seen some incredible races here in the past in Moto3 and in the Moto3 World Championship. Obviously, it's the final corner here that made Maverick Vinales the king of the world back in the day, and you really can, yeah, everything can go down to the wire here very easily, and it's a great place to watch, like we said, for the fans.
Yeah, always goes down to the wire in the Moto3 class. We saw Yuki Kunii on pole position. He is, of course, a former race winner in this class. He won at Areth last season. Dennis Onchu, you can see down on the grid, of course, his brother Can racing in the Moto3 World Championship. Dennis, a former Asian Talent Cup champion, and also finished second in the Red Bull Rookies round. Yeah,
he did, and a little bit of pressure for the family name there. Obviously, here is where his brother Chan Onchu, on the top on that poster there, took the Grand Prix win last year in the season finale in the wet, and in doing so took the youngest ever record from Scott Redding that went back to 2008. But Dennis Onchu, I think he'd be a bit disappointed with his season opener, so here definitely now we're in the dry, we'll be looking to really hit the ground running. Obviously had 2 solid qualifying performances, but now needs some big points to kick the campaign into gear kind of for him.
Yeah, Dennis Onchu, he qualified second in Estoril but crashed during the race, and he finished, but he was finished well down the order. Jeremy Alcoba, third on the grid. Alcoba ended up 5th in the opening race of the season. He is a race winner in this class, and he's also had 10 podiums during the course of his career, as you can see there as well. Pole sitter in Estoril.
Yeah, he's a really, really experienced campaigner. We've got an awful lot of rookies on the grid this year in the Moto3 Junior World Championship, but Alcoba definitely not one of them, but should be one to watch. Like you say, he has won before, but also a pretty consistent guy as well. You get a few people that have a race win and then suddenly drop off the radar a little bit, depending on the track or conditions as well, but Alcoba pretty consistent.
And Stefano Nappa, you can see on the grid as well on that number 82 machine. For Nappa, he is, of course, a rider with lots of experience, raced pretty much a full season in the Moto3 World Championship.
Yeah, from Mugello on last year, he was in the World Championship, but he's got a best finish of 12th at Valencia, so that bodes well returning to the venue now. But then in Catalonia in 2018 as well, he was 5th. So in this class, so yeah, should be some good form from him, I think. Obviously that World Championship experience came to a bit of a premature end. He's back here this year, but that always is good to garner that experience and race an even higher level. Super competitive here, but also in the World Championship, obviously, so should be good experience for him. Yeah, and Ryo Yamanaka on the second row of the grid as well, in the middle of the second row, the Tokyo native. And for Yamanaka, he is, of course, a former Red Bull rookie race winner in France, a guy with lots of experience as well. Yeah, and he was actually in those pretty similar colours, at least. He took part in the first Grand Prix of the season in Qatar when Sergio Garcia, who's the permanent rider for the Estrella Galicia team in the World Championship, was too young. So Yamanaka got the season off to a bit of an earlier start than a few on this grid. But yeah, so it should be interesting to see what he can do now we're back in his normal territory. Yeah, and David Salvador on the grid as well, on the second row of the grid on number 38. Fran, of course, you saw him last year in the European Talent Cup. Yep, he finished the season in the ETC in the top 3, and because of that, he was also a rider who's been chosen by Dorna and Red Bull talent promotion program to get a shot at the Red Bull rookies as well. So a pretty packed calendar for him this season, and yeah, good to see he's really hit the ground running now in the Moto3 Junior World Championship. Yeah, good stuff from Salvador so far this weekend to qualify up there in 6th. He retired from the Estoril race, but hopefully we'll be able to see him battling at the front. So keep an eye on the number 38 for the 15-year-old from Madrid. On the third row of the grid, we're going to see David Pizzoli as well. And of course for Davide, as you can see here on the number 23 machine, he's a rider with lots of different experience. He's raced actually quite a bit in the World Supersport Championship. He raced for the opening half of the season a couple of years ago on an MV Agusta. So he's got lots of experience on different classes of bikes, but racing here in the Junior World Championship in Moto3 in France. Yep, in the Junior World Championship, obviously in those leopard colours, some that we'll know well from the World Championship as well. So there's obviously quite a few structures in this paddock that have sort of a route through from the junior categories to world level. Leopard are one of them, and obviously Estrella Galicia as well, with here we see Daniel Holgado.
Yeah, and it was Danny's birthday yesterday, and of course, Fran, he was actually too young to take part in the first race of the season. But
it's the new Estrella Galicia trend of the year, hiring a rider who's just too young for the season opener.
You got to just think about the long term with these young rider programs. But for Holgado, really impressive stuff to be qualifying on the third row of the grid there on what will be his CEV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship debut. You can see the crowd just starting to come in here as well. And for all the crowd here, this is the real opportunity to see these future stars of tomorrow. I sort of touched on it earlier on, but when you look at the list of the riders that have won in this championship in the past, you're looking at Raul Fernandez, the reigning champion, but lots of just known commodities from the Moto3 World Championship, whether it's Foggia, Della Porto, Bulega, of course, having raced in it the last few years. We've had Fabio Quartararo and Alex Marquez both winning in the Moto3 class. This really is where you can see those stars of tomorrow. Yeah,
it really is. And also, I mean, obviously the champions are some really impressive names. But those guys who didn't quite take the title as well, like Canet, obviously when he raced here, it was Bulega who won the crown at the end of that year. But Canet suffered with injury then, so that really upset his campaign. And he'd taken multiple race wins and really looked like the guy who was, you know, the one to beat. And likewise, Joan Mir, of course, now in MotoGP already. His serve record was pretty amusing in retrospect. It's basically win or bin, his record in this championship. So it was everything or nothing when Mir was here, but you could clearly see that talent in the, you know, those races where he did take victory. And yeah, this is just a breeding ground for talent. It's not the easiest way, because that makes it sound like it's actually, you know, genuinely easier, but it's certainly the most likely way that you will find your route into MotoGP quite often, and certainly into the Moto3 World Championship. Yeah, this really is where, if you want to make that move, you've got to come. And I remember talking to, even from years ago, the likes of Bradley Smith, Scott Redding, that made the move to come to Spain a lot earlier than most British riders. They always said that the key thing for them to get to MotoGP was just to come and race in the Spanish Championship. It just gives you that bit of a leg up, that little bit of an incentive to be able to put yourself in front of the big wigs. But as you can see at the front of the field, it is Yuki Kunii, Dennis Onchu and Jeremy Alcoba on the front row of the grid. And then we've got Stefano Nepa, Ryusei Yamanaka and David Salvador on row 2. Pizzoli, the birthday boy yesterday, Holgado and Carlos Tate are on the third row of the grid. And then we'll wait, we're a bit hasty there. We've got Xavier Artigas, reigning ETC champion, Matteo Bertelli and Aleix Vieux, a veteran campaigner, on row 4. And Jose Garcia was a podium man in Estoril. He's on the fifth row of the grid in front of Japasquier and Noguchi. And then we've lost our timing now, and we're running ahead. We have obviously Estoril race winner Barry Baltus in 19th, one to look out for. And then Mario Aggi, Max Cook, the junior talent team riders, Bill Van Aert, reigning ATC champion. Few names back there who'll be looking to move forward. And Aaron Polanco, who of course has had some good results here and then suffered a bit with injury, and he'll definitely be looking to move forward from 23rd. Yeah, in the 10th row of the grid, we've got Kawakami, we've got Pataka, and we've also got Vostatek. And then on the final two rows of the grid, we've got Ryan van der Lagerat, Diaz, Giral, and on the back row of the grid, Quinero and Raychek just bringing up the rear. But for all these riders, Fran, this really is the opportunity just to bed themselves in now on the sighting lap, get yourself ready for this race. You can see Yuki Kunii on the pole just trying to get himself psyched up. He is, of course, a former race winner in this class. He won in Jerez last season, coming from the Asian Talent Cup Championship as well. He's got a lot of experience and now really is putting it to good use. Yeah, definitely. There's a few names, sort of Dennis Onchu and the likes of him, who've arrived and quickly made a good impression, but then the real veterans of the class that you start to expect really big things from are the likes of Alcoba and certainly Kunii, like you said, already a race winner, some podiums as well. And yeah, this season I wouldn't be surprised if the Japanese rider is a threat throughout the entire year. Yeah, I think for the likes of Alcoba, you really have to be able to use your experience in this class. He's pretty much the most experienced rider in the class. There is actually a couple of riders with either the same amount of starts as him or maybe just a couple more. But for Alcoba, he's at the front, he's on the front row of the grid and really needs to make a count here today after what happened to him in Estoril. As we said, in Estoril, he qualified on pole, only finished 5th in those difficult conditions. He was able to pick up points, but gave up a bit of ground. As you said, though, Fran, for the Estoril race winner Barry Baltus, he's going to come from the 7th row of the grid. So let's keep an eye on the number 7 and see if he's able to build on what he did in Estoril. He is, of course, a rider that he won the European Talent Cup race in Estoril, and
maybe that's just a track that really does seem to suit him. Now he needs to build on that whenever we come to Valencia.
Yeah, definitely. I keep saying yeah, definitely, but you're speaking too much truth. Obviously, the conditions in Estoril don't give you necessarily a full picture of everyone's form or how it may be once we get onto different tracks, and certainly with obviously dry weather and beautiful sunny skies like we've got here. So it will be a pretty interesting one, and it's also fairly interesting because obviously, regardless of the fact that maybe the conditions were a rarity, they're also still worth the same 25 points when you cross the line. So it's already seems to have given us what potentially could be a bit of a shake-up early on if the likes of Baltas are going to struggle a little bit more on other tracks where, like you say, he's not got winning experience and where the conditions don't necessarily let him shine as he did there.
Yeah, and it's a double header here today for these Moto3 riders. Of course, last time out in Estoril, they only had the one race, so now they've got the opportunity to race twice in the day here at Valencia, an 18-lap race here in the Moto3 class for all these riders. You can see everyone now just getting themselves ready to the grid. Yuki Kunii, the pole sitter there on the number 33. Keep an eye out for him. You've got Davide Pizzoli just behind them on the Leopard bike as well, number 23. But Barry Baltas coming through from the 7th row of the grid. Keep an eye on the number 7 to see what kind of progress he's able to make after winning the opening race of the season. On that front row of the grid, we've got Yuki Kunii on the number 33, the 53 Dennis Onsu, and Jeremy Alcoba, the experienced rider, on the number 52. So for all these riders now, you can see just getting ready to get the all clear to get the starting lights on. Yuki Kunii doing what he can just to try and relax on the grid. Red flag at the front. We'll wait for that to clear. You can see it looks like there's actually a problem down there with one of the SICK 58 bikes. That could be Arita down there on the 6th or 7th row of the grid, and it looks like he's just been taken off. And
he also had some problems at the start in Estoril, so a bit of a heartbreaking campaign for him in terms of the start of races so far. Looks like he'll probably be starting from pit lane, I guess. Not sure what the problem is for him.
The red flag's gone off the front, so we just wait for the red lights at the start of this race. Yuki Kunii on pole on the 33 in front of Dennis Onsu, who gets the good start from the 33 of Kunii, but it looks like Dennis Onsu has just been able to go through the gears a little bit smoother on the 53 into the lead, taking the whole shot there. Dennis Onsu on the Red Bull IO machine, and a good start there from the number 6 of Yamanaka as well. He's up into 3rd position. Is everyone going to be able to get through that opening corner pretty cleanly? A few riders running out wide, including the number 7 there of Baltas. That's Akari just trying to get himself onto pit lane now after that starting issue. Down in towards turn 2. Is everyone able to get through this section cleanly? Very easy, just to get yourself caught out through there. Yeah,
definitely. It looks like Onchu's plan is pin it from the off. He's already seeming to pull a little bit of a gap on these guys behind, but great start from the Turk, and of course he is significantly smaller and lighter than Kunii as well. But yeah, so far those two made really good starts off the front row and seem to be in control at the moment.
Yeah, Dennis Onsu, proper pint-sized at the front there for the Turkish rider, 15-year-old on the number 53. He's just opening up a little bit of a lead there from Kunii. You can see Kunii and Yamanaka just trying to hold on to their positions and try and go with Dennis Onsu. Onsu doing a really good job here at the start, just to be able to stretch a bit of a lead, Fran.
Yeah, definitely. You'll see that great camera angle. Everyone's super close together still in the early stages, although those lead two do have a little bit of daylight behind them. Classic Moto3, that freight train, and we can see there will be another member joining it shortly. Sad times for Arita there, but at least he's you know, going to get some experience at the track.
Yeah, unfortunate for the Japanese rider, but at least able to try and get himself through and get some experience. He's still got another race this afternoon in the Moto3 class. At the front of the field though, Onsu just being pegged back a little bit now by the number 33 of Yuki Kunii. Kunii did a good job there just to be able to stay with Onsu as they come across the line to start the second lap of the race. But for Dennis Onsu, Fran did exactly what he had to do. He got a good start, got himself into the lead.
Yeah, definitely. The Turk has in general made some good starts and shown some really good form, but he usually has had more problems from crashing than from actual pace, so he'll want to just try and iron out those mistakes a little bit now. Obviously it's his second season, so now's the time to really build on it and not just be fast but also get those results and bag those points.
Yeah, and it looks like in this group in the fight for 4th, it looks like Carlos Tate just holding up some of these riders behind him. Alcoba is on the 52. The 96 is Danny Calgado. As we said, he only turned 14 yesterday, so this is his debut in the Moto3 class, so really good performance there from the Estrada Galicia rider. Keep an eye out for him. He's on the 96, just able to get in front of what looked like one of the Andres Perez bikes as well. That's Stefano Napa, and the 67's gone down. The 67 is Gerard Rieu, and it looks like he's out of this race, unfortunately for the KTM rider. But Fran, easy just to have mistakes around this track. It's easy whenever you're in the pack just to get yourself sucked in a little bit, and we could see that in the fight for 4th as well.
Yeah, definitely, with these guys so close together. there, and you can see now Alcoba's taken over at the head of that group, so hopefully for him he'll now be able to pull away a bit, because it definitely did look initially in this race anyway as though Tatai was holding those guys up, so we'll have to see how that plays out now. Yeah,
Jeremy Alcoba, lots of experience in this class. This is actually going to be his 38th start in the CEV Moto3 class, so really experienced on that 52, and he's going to need to use that experience to try and break away from this pack. You can see the 31's gone down. That's Billy Van Erde, the reigning ATC champion. That looks like he's gone down at what I'd imagine is down at turn 11, and unfortunate there for Billy Van Erde, but he'll at least have the chance to fight again in the second race of the day. At the front of the field, though, his teammate on the number 33, Yuki Kunii, doing a good job there just to keep the race leader Dennis Onshu honest. They've been pretty much lapping at the same pace for the last couple of laps now, and good stuff from Kunii, Fran, because it looked in those initial couple of corners that Dennis Onshu had been able to stretch a little bit of a lead. That's the 96 of Halgado down the inside of the 99. We said that the 99 of Carlos Tate was holding people up, and Halgado doing his best to make sure he's able to get through into those top 5 spots. Yeah,
obviously it's so easy when you see someone bolting at the front like Onshu initially looked like he was going to try and do, to lose your head a bit and you know, just crash out, make a mistake trying to chase them immediately. But Kunii definitely done a really good job to tag back onto the back of the Turk, and at the moment those two seem in a class of their own a little bit. And we have another crasher, that's Filip Rychek. He started at the back of the grid, unfortunately, but it looks like a little bit bruised, but seems okay, the Czech rider. Ooh, bit of a nasty one down there for him.
Yeah, just having that high side there for the Czech rider. He's from Brno. He'll have the opportunity later in the season, obviously, to be racing pretty close to Brno as well. But for all these riders at the front, Fran, you can see just how treacherous the conditions can be. They can catch you out, because it's very easy in these Moto3 races just to try and push that little bit too hard. It's very easy just to be a little bit too aggressive, and it's very easy to have those kind of crashes. You can see there with Yuki Kunii just making sure he's able to stay in behind the 53 of Dennis Onshu at the front. But Yuki Kunii looks like he's able to put his bike anywhere he wants. He's able to carry that bit of corner speed into different sections.
Yeah, looks super comfortable, does the Japanese rider. It would be interesting to see if he is going to make a move or if he's going to sit there and pile on the pressure. Obviously he is the more veteran campaigner of this duo, so he'll probably feel like he's holding the cards at the moment. And you can see Alcoba still fighting for control of the front of that little freight train, fighting for third. But yeah, good progress from him. Again, not the best start from the Spaniard, but seems to be back on it a bit now. We'll have to see if anyone can close this duo down.
Yeah, sometimes you got to just send it down the inside into turn 1. That's exactly what Alcoba did. He's up into third spot now. Behind him, though, the 96 has gone through as well. That's Danny Halgado through on his teammate Yamanaka as well. So good performance here from the debutant. This is really impressive stuff from Halgado on the 96.
Yeah, really impressive stuff, and I'm sure giving Yamanaka something to think about as well. We've got a few new faces in that Estrella Galicia this year. Obviously Alcoba was one of them last season, so yes, should be a good battle this, I think. But at the moment doesn't look like Alcoba's been able to make much progress since getting through into that third place.
Yeah, for Alcoba, he is up there in that third spot at the moment, but just still under pressure from the Estrella Galicia riders behind him, so hasn't been able to try and close that gap. It's up to around about 2 seconds, the gap between the leading two, which is Dennis Onshu and Yuki Kunii, between them and that scrap for third position. So it does seem to have separated into those two different groups right now, but that can easily change once we start to see a bit of a fight at the front as well, Fran. Once you're battling, you can cost yourself a lot of times on these Moto3 machines.
Yeah, definitely, and I wonder if that is why Kunii is making sure that he, although it looks, just as I was saying that, I thought I saw a flash of that bike going past Onshu. So it will be interesting now to see if the Japanese rider's made that move, because he thinks he can now break away and set his own pace at the front. But Onshu, like we said, a pretty light rider. He might be able to maybe get him back into turn 1 here. Not quite close enough, but yeah, so these guys now, it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Should be a fairly tactical one. They're obviously, you know, both got a lot of experience. Kunii more so in this class, but yeah, both Asia Talent Cup riders, and you certainly learn some racecraft in that class.
Yeah, the ATC has really actually been a good breeding ground for all these Asian riders as well, and for Yuki Kunii, one of that latest group of Japanese riders trying to make themselves through into the Grand Prix classes. Good move down in towards the last corner. You can do that into the last corner corner, pretty much just try and run all the way in, outbreak the rider in front of you and just try and force them just to make sure they can't get that apex down as well. But behind them, Alcoba's still out in front, but it looks like Yamanaka has been able to get himself into 4th position in front of his teammate Danny Helgado. Let's see what Dennis Onchu is able to do on the 53, down in towards turn 8, a little bit too far back, but you can try and set up some moves from this point onwards. Through the left-hander, it's all about trying to set yourself up for the right-handers, down in towards 10 and 11. And then down in towards turn 12, the short shoot. You can't really make a move into there, but you can try and set up your exit, France, that you're able to try and carry all your speed around the long left-hander.
Yeah, definitely. You can see from that camera angle so far, it's still pretty close together. Almost look like one rider when you get that head-on shot. But yeah, I wonder if Kunii is going to be able to just slowly start to pull the pin a little bit. But Onchu, obviously, at the moment, keeping him very, very honest.
Yeah, Onchu there on the 53, just sitting in behind Yuki Kunii. So Kunii hasn't been able to break away, hasn't been able to try and stretch his legs at the front. So Kunii doing well on this lap just to be able to stay in front of Onchu. But that's the second time we've seen Onchu look over his shoulder as well. You can see Carlos Tate there on the 99. Looks like he's had some sort of a problem. Maybe he ran off. We'll just keep an eye and see whether or not he's lost a lot of places. But on the 99, we saw him at the front of this group in that fight for third. You can see for the fight for the lead, though, Yuki Kunii out in front from Dennis Onchu, still able to stay in front. But into third goes the Estrella Galicia bike. That looks like it's the 96 of Helgado, and Alcoba tries to attack straight back, and Alcoba on the 52 manages to hold on to third position. But Fran, you can see through this section, it's easy to try and make a move. It's difficult to try and hold on to that position, though. Yeah,
Alcoba there, pitch perfect, just immediately answering back, and yeah, seems pretty keen to hang on to the lead of this little squabble over third place at the moment. And we saw Tatai there falling through the order on the timing screen. A couple of other riders with him. Looks like Jose Garcia and Haruki Noguchi were the other two. Obviously not seeing a replay of what might have happened to those guys, but they certainly all went down the timing screen at the same time. So possibly a 3-rider incident there that they've fallen foul of.
Yeah, and that's down at turn 6, so the left-hander leading onto the back straight. It's easy to try and have a crash through there, actually, because you can try and make a move down the inside and run in a little bit too hot. You can see in this fight for third, though, even with them scrapping like this, they're actually closing the gap on the riders in front of them as well, Fran.
They are, yeah. It's pretty surprising at the moment. As yeah, these two at the front look like initially they really had some serious pace on those guys on the chase. But yeah, despite that squabble, which, as we know, is often the easiest way to go much, much slower around a racetrack, they're yeah, still not so far off. And Onchu again having a big look behind him, and it seems like he has time to do that, because still right on the back of Kunii, despite having popped out a couple of times to take a look at those guys that are chasing them down.
Yeah, and tries to just ghost around the outside there, but down the inside into turn 1, Helgado's not quite close enough on Alcoba. We saw Alcoba run all the way out onto pit exit there as well, just trying to make sure he had as wide a line as possible into turn 1. You can see as everyone weaves down in towards turn 2, we've got what looks like Pizzoli just getting down the inside there as well. Sorry, it's Javier Artigas on the number 24 machine, just getting himself down the inside as well, down in towards turn 2. But for these riders in this 5-rider group, Fran, for third, it's easy to get yourself into a little bit of a yo-yoing situation, but they need to make sure they work together, because there's still a race to be won here. We're only a third distance through this race, so there is still the chance to be able to close that gap onto the 2 race leaders.
Quite, yeah, there's enough laps to go here for these guys to have a real good crack at closing down those 2 in the lead, but they definitely need to start nominating a pace setter and stop slowing each other up. But obviously much easier said than done when you're in a commentary box nice and relaxed just watching the race, than when you're sort of a 15-year-old boy desperately trying to get past people and then set off after those guys. So at the moment though, Alcoba seems really keen to make sure he's the lead rider in that group. And our retirement for Isam Ikmal, not sure if that's a crash or what's happened to him. Ah, yeah, crash. So yeah, good to see him up and okay.
Yeah, crash at what we think is turn 13 as well, so that's a fast crash as well for Ikmal. You can see that the bike was a little bit damaged there as well, so he might have come down pretty hard on the side of that bike. But you can see at the front of the field, it is a case of the 52 of Alcoba in that fight for third, still just trying to defend that position. Fran, you said that it's easy for us not to make mistakes up here in the commentary box. I made mistakes yesterday down the track. I got ridiculously sunburned, so I'm not going to say anything about the riders making a few mistakes out there. But you can see there for Yuki Kunii at the front on the 33, still able to defend that position from Dennis Onchu on the 53. But you'd imagine there's going to start to be a lot of changes for position in that scrap for third. It looks like Nepa's been able to get himself through up into 4th position now as well in the number 82 machine.
Yeah, it's all well and good for Alcoba being desperate to defend that position and be the guy at the front of that train, but he does need to then show why he's there and start really closing them down, because at the moment that gap's gone up again by a few tenths. So yeah, it's you know, getting 11 laps to go. It's quite a while, but the guys at the front show no sign of slowing up whatsoever, and they're not fighting each other either and slowing each other up. So Alcoba needs to kind of show the guys behind him, like, no, I have got the pace, and let's go and chase them down. And a few cheeky little trips over onto the green stuff there. We saw Kunii do that out of turn 1 a couple of minutes ago as well. They do have to be a little bit careful of that. You can't take too many liberties with the track limits. Yeah,
that's for sure. But Alcoba on the 52 at the front of this group. Last time around he lost half a second to the race leaders. He's definitely starting to cost time for this group. He's trying to defend, he's trying to hold on to his position, but maybe he'd be better served just by trying to allow someone else to set that pace. Alcoba with a look over his shoulder on the 52. He looks straight down into the 82 of Nepa. Nepa's under attack though from the 96 of Danny Holgado. Keep an eye out for that Estrella Galicia rider. His debut in the class, Fran, but he's looked like he's really settled right in.
Yeah, he's really impressive as Holgado, especially on his debut when last year some good results in the ETC and some good pace, but yeah, really impressive from him to be right in the podium fight from the off really in the Junior World Championship. But it looks like Nepa has had enough of the Alcoba defense game and is going to make a move, and we've got a few people. Who's going to be the latest breaker into here? Nepa keeps it, but yeah, Holgado follows him straight through. Let's see what these guys can do now now they're past Alcoba.
A good move there from Holgado on the 96, but he's going to be under attack from Alcoba now down in towards turn 2. Good defending though to be able to hold on to 4th position. Nepa was able to use the slipstream to try and get down the inside into turn 1. Let's see what kind of pace he can set once he's at the front of this group. Last time around he lost another 0.4 of a second to the race leaders just because he was trying to get through on Alcoba. That lead is now stretched out to almost 3 seconds. So Fran, you'd have to say that those leading two, they're been and gone now in that scrap. And for Nepa, Alcoba, Holgado and Artigas, they're really going to have to try and close that gap. It's a 5-rider group in that scrap for 3rd position. It's number 6 of Yamanaka at the back of that group.
Yeah, the window for chasing those guys down is starting to close a little bit now, isn't it? Especially if they're not going to fight each other and slow each other up. At the moment, seem perfectly content to, follow each other, swap over. Then nothing too crazy going on in that duel at the front. Obviously playing the long game, but these guys now have to see if Nepa can pull the pin a little bit. But yeah, it is getting bigger, that gap, lap by lap.
Yeah, Nepa, as we said at the start of the show, he's got plenty of experience. He raced in the Moto3 World Championship last year as well. He's got a dozen starts at World Championship level. He's been able to use that experience just to get himself through into that 3rd position. You can see at the front of the field, number 33, Yuki Kunii, starting to stretch out a bit of a lead now, just as he starts to come across the line at half distance here. Let's see what time it was from Yuki Kunii as he comes across the line. He was 1/3 of a second faster there than the 53 of Dennis Onchu, and really did actually just keep the consistent pace there. Holgado on the 96, not quite close enough down in towards turn 3. Nepa's up in that 3rd spot. The gap's 3 seconds between himself and the race leaders. Is Nepa going to be able just to try and force the pace at the front? He's not going to be able to force the pace, because forcing his way down the inside is the 96 of Holgado into those podium positions, and just having Jeremy Alcoba also follow him through as well on the number 52. And I have to say, Fran, Danny Holgado there on the 96, this is really impressive. I was out watching yesterday and he was one of the riders that you could see looked really impressive, but you never really know when you're out watching trackside what they're doing at the rest of the lap. It was only whenever you came in you could see the times, that you could see that Holgado really has switched himself on for his rookie season here in the Moto3 Junior World Championship.
Most definitely, and a quick shout out as well to another ETC alumnus in that group, which is Xavier Artigas, the reigning ETC champion. He's looking pretty comfortable in that group at the front as well. So really good, not only for those guys as individuals obviously, but also for the guys in the ETC to be able to see this and to see that that cup really can prepare them to have a good crack at even a podium so early in the rookie season in the Moto3 Junior World Championship. So that's good to see. And Holgado at the moment has taken over at the front of that group. Let's see if he's got any more pace in his pocket to try and cut that gap down.
Yeah, and this really is a year of transition for the Moto3 Junior World Championship. There's only 6 riders on this grid have actually stood on a CEV Moto3 podium, so this really is an opportunity for a lot of the younger riders, a lot of the rookie riders coming up from the ETC to give themselves that opportunity. That's Max Koffler that's had a problem, and for the Austrian rider, he's just trying to get himself restarted, and he's down at turn 6 it looks like there for Max Koffler. Down in towards turn 1 though, the 52 of Alcoba still able to hold on to that 4th position. He hasn't looked like he's the fastest rider in this group, but he's consistently been able to find a way to try and make some moves. You can see the 82 of Nepa tried to run around the outside, but Alcoba just able to make sure he's able to hold on to that position. Up into 3rd spot now for Alcoba. He might be the slowest in the group, Fran, at times, but he's the one that knows when to make the moves.
Yeah, he's been a masterclass in defence and fighting his way back up to the lead of that group so far. So I'm sure much to the slight frustration of those who were in that group with him. But it looked like he was just looking behind him there, but immediately pickpocketed even by Stefano Nepa there. And yeah, we'll have to see how this little group plays out. We've got Pizzoli at the back of it now, getting a little bit more racy looking, but yeah, should be a good fight this already. We've got 8 laps to go still, but it's all seems to be amping up a little bit.
Yeah, the pace is quite slow in this battle for 3rd, though they've dropped a 2nd off the pace. That's why we're starting to see everyone try and make the moves. Pizzoli down the inside there of Yamanaka, and that's why we start to see a lot of riders start to put themselves into positions to try and make some moves. It's only whenever you start to see the group get a little bit stretched out all in a single line that you really do start to see everyone starting to press on a little bit more. We've still got a 3rd of this race left, so right now you're just trying to land a few punches, just try and understand what your rival's doing, and then you'll try and just land the killer blows in the final couple of laps. But it is still Nepa on the 82 out in front from Halgado on the 96, and then the 52 of Alcoba. But at the front of the field you can see Yuki Kunii now starting to come under a lot more pressure from Dennis Onchu. Onchu with the fastest lap of the race just the last time around, and he was able to go a couple of tenths of a second faster than the race leader. But you can see there the pace gap between Kunii and Nepa, 1.3 seconds last time around. That's why we're squabbling for these positions. That's why we're starting to see lots of changes in this group. You can see Artigas able to get himself through into 4th position as well. But right now, not really a representative battle in that scrap for 3rd. Everyone's just trying to keep an eye and see what the rivals are doing.
Yeah, and like we said here, we get a look back at the battle at the front, or not really a battle yet, is it? More just fairly relaxed at the moment. So more like chess really than racing. But Onchu definitely, yeah, like you can see on the graphic there, a little bit faster than Kunii that time around, and able to get back on the pace and close down the Japanese rider a little bit. So looks like this one should be going all the way to the end. Yeah,
it's a chess match at the front. You're just trying to make sure that you're putting your pieces into the right places. And in that scrap for 3rd, it's much more of a drafts game. You're just trying to just make your moves when the opportunities present themselves. Different strategies unfolding in these 2 groups. And at the front of the field, though, Yuki Kunii, he's led pretty much the whole race so far. And he's looked very comfortable as well, Fran. Hasn't made a mistake, hasn't put a foot wrong yet. And the pace has been fast and consistent from the 2 race leaders. Yeah,
and obviously both of these guys had a bit of a nightmare season opener. So a lot at stake for both of them, because I'd say they're both really odds on for challenging for the title at least. So, you know, there's a lot of points at stake today, 50 points with 2 Moto3 races. So certainly important for both of them, not only to stamp a little bit of authority on a race in the dry and show, you know, like I'm back after Estoril, but also to get some good points after, yeah, that was a little bit shuffled around in Estoril. And speaking of Estoril, the Estoril winner, Barry Baltus, he was down in 19th on the grid, like we saw. A bit of a tough qualifying for the Belgian, but he's made his way up into 9th at the moment. And yeah, he's the guy behind that battle that we've been focusing on for 3rd place. So pretty impressive from him, and about 4 tenths breathing space back to LHV in 10th as well.
Yeah, and for Barry Baltus, he's got a big gap between him and the riders in front, so 9th is as high as he's going to go unless anyone hits trouble in front of them. Yuki Kunii, though, he's not looking like he's hitting too much trouble right now, but Dennis Onchu starting to get a lot more aggressive, starting to really try and put his bike into different places, and starting to really just try and see where Kunii's strong, just trying to just feel out this race now as well for Dennis Onchu on the 53 machine. And for Onchu, you'd certainly think he's going to try and make a move in the next couple of laps. He's looked really strong in a couple of different sectors, but we'll see if he's able to try and make a move for the race lead. Alcoba, he isn't going to try and make a move into 3rd position. He's actually going to come under attack in that scrap for 3rd position. It's still the number 82 of Stefano Nepa holding on to 3rd spot. At the front of the field, though, this is where we saw that Yuki Kunii was strong whenever he was in second spot. This is where he made the move for the race lead, and this is where he seems to be able just to stretch a little bit of a lead from Dennis Öncü. But Öncü really fast down the straight. Öncü looking over his shoulder once again. He's done this nearly every lap through this race. There's 6 seconds between him and Nepa behind him. He doesn't need to think about the rider behind him. Yeah,
I'm not sure how quickly he thinks those guys behind are going to be able to close down that kind of gap, but yeah, nothing to worry about from behind us. Just focus on the race win. Kunii again there, a little bit wide and over that green stuff. He'll have to watch out for track limits. Yeah, and they're going to have to watch out for back markers as well now, because the 65 of Arita is just in front of them as well. If you remember, Hikari had to start from pit lane. It looks like he's actually gotten out of the way and let the race leaders through. So far out of the way, he was off camera. So yeah, good job from the Japanese rider. Obviously, like we said, heartbreaking start to both races of his Moto3 CUV career so far. But yeah, good job to get out of the way, and no harm done to this battle for the lead. We saw in Moto2, certainly in Estoril, those back markers were pretty challenging for the guys coming through, so they can play a big one. And what's happened to Dennis Öncü? Yeah, mistake, problem there for Dennis Öncü. He's actually stalled because he's trying to look like to get that bike bump started there as well. So is he going to be able to get that bike started? But technical failure there for Dennis Öncü out of this race. You can see the frustration for the Turkish rider as well. And absolutely, we just talked about heartbreak there for Atari. An absolute heartbreak there for the Turkish rider. This is now a scrap for second. This is a scrap for 20 points. Pizzoli trying to get down the inside to make sure he's in the podium spots on Stefano Nepa, the 2 Italian riders. And Pizzoli on the 23. He's going to have that inside line down into turn 12. And it is still Jeremy Alcoba out in front of this group as well. But now this is a scrap for a second position. Yeah, they will have obviously seen Dennis Öncü pull off and have that problem. Obviously, you know, it's a pretty visible bike, but also a lot of gesticulating from the Turkish rider. Somewhere around the back of the track, he's ended up pulling over. But yeah, you can see really, really heartbroken, and you know, obviously for good reason. He was doing everything right in this race, in that battle at the front. But yeah, now it's 2 of these guys who will be on the podium, so maybe a little bit less tension to take that one single space on the rostrum, but we'll have to see, because yeah, it's still you know, 6 into 2 doesn't go, 5 into 1 doesn't go. We'll have to see how that pans out. But now Kunii, it's just a race of trying to stay relaxed, stay calm, not make any mistakes. And yeah, I'd say definitely now he needs to be careful of track limits and making an error. They're the only 2 things that are going to be able to stop him winning this race. Yeah, Yuki Kunii 3.5 laps from home now and comfortably out in front for Dennis Öncü. We saw him on his knees. He's going to need to say a prayer as well, Fran, because no points through these opening 2 rounds of the year. You can see Öncü, no doubt he's in tears down there as well, because that's tough to take for any rider, but really tough after what happened in Estoril as well. We've seen him qualify in the front row of the grid for both races. We've seen him in the front group in both races, and unfortunately we've seen him down and out in both races. Yeah, like you say, it'd be tough to take, especially because it seems like it wasn't rider error. So, you know, obviously if you crash out, especially like you did in Estoril in tough conditions, you'd be mad at yourself, but you understand what's happened, and it feels like you've made a mistake and you've penalised yourself, rather than, I guess, right now it just feels completely unjust after he'd had such a solid race up to that point and really looked like he was getting ready to take the fight to Kunii in the final couple of laps here. Yeah, that's the frustrating part for Dennis Öncü. He had put himself back into position to try and really attack on Kunii in the final handful of laps, but unfortunately he's going to just have to regroup for race 2 in a few hours time. And for this battle for P2, you can see that David Pizzoli is out in front on the number 23 machine, former World Supersport rider. He's got lots of experience. Alcoba on the 52's got more experience in the CEV Moto3 class than pretty much anyone else in the field. The 82 of Nepa's got World Championship experience with a dozen starts. And then you've got Javier Artigas, the European Talent Cup champion, and then Halgado, the rookie in the Moto3 class, and then Yamanaka as well. So this group here, lots of different levels of experience in it. All the experienced runners at the front of the field in this group, Fran, in those leading 3 positions, but the 3 riders at the back, not to be underestimated. Yeah, definitely. They've shown that more than enough in this race, looking like veterans completely in that group. I think these guys, you know, if you asked me to pick out who's just moved into this class and this is their first race, definitely would not say Holgado. So really, really solid job from Artigas as well, obviously, although he had a bit more experience in Estoril. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how this is going to play out, because there's quite a lot at stake for these rookies. It's pretty impressive, and if they can even get a nip at the podium and get past those guys who have a little bit more experience, it will be yeah, really, really great day's work. Well, not even day's work, half a day's work, since we have another race later. But yeah, super performance from them.
Yeah, Delgado on the 96, too young to race the season opening race in Estoril. Luckily for him, though, as we said, a lot of the leading riders in the title race you'd expect did non-score in Estoril as well. So for Delgado to be able to jump straight in here at Valencia and be able to ride like this really is impressive from the 14-year-old Spaniard. He's just from down the road in Alicante as well, so pretty much a home round for him, and also he'll have another effective home round in Albacete as well later on this season, as Yuki Kunii starts his penultimate lap of the race. 8.2 seconds clear, this scrap for second. It's Pezzoli on the 23 and Jeremy Alcoba on the number 52, trying to just make sure he's able to keep himself in a position to try and attack. Stefano Neppa on the 82 machine, trying to just make sure that he's weaving around and just making sure he's putting pressure on Alcoba. But you can see down the inside, Artigas also trying to make sure he's putting pressure on Neppa as well. Down the inside goes the 24 of Artigas to take that fourth position. Now this is the scrap for second, and Stefano Neppa, he's been beaten up on this lap. He's gone from second in this group to second last in this group, so he's gone from the podium spots to now being under pressure with a lap and a half to go, Fran.
Yeah, it just shows how quickly you can get shuffled back in these Moto3 little group fights. Just one person makes a move and then the opportunist behind follows them through, and then suddenly, like you say, yeah, shuffled down a few positions. But Alcoba, again, you could see just a few corners ago looking over his shoulder. You know, they're still there. They've been there the whole race. A little bit like Dennis Onchu was doing as well. There's no need to check that out. I think it's fairly obvious he's still got some company. I imagine you can still hear them at the moment. So yeah, those two guys, I think if they need to focus a little bit more on trying to pull away from that group. And it looked like there was a little bit of daylight there, but now the shuffle in the back four has calmed down again. They've caught them right back up.
Yeah, Alcoba just hasn't looked like he's had the pace to try and get to the front of this group and pull away. So clearly he's having to think about the riders in and around him. Is he going to try and put himself close enough to try and get a run down the inside into that last corner? And speaking of the last, just starting the last lap of the race, Yuki Kunii comes across the line, so he's only 4 kilometers from home. He's got a massive lead. It's around about 9 seconds now out in front for the number 33 machine, but it's all about this scrap for second. Is Alcoba close enough to try and get down the inside into turn 1? You can make a move into turn 1, but you need to just try and send it down that inside. Not quite close enough for Alcoba. He's still down there in 3rd position. It's Pezzoli up in 2nd position there on the number 23 machine. The 96 of Delgado trying to just make sure he's able to get down the inside. Not close enough to try and attack on Alcoba. Keep an eye out for the 96 of Danny Delgado, and he's there in 4th position. It's still Pezzoli out in front, Yamanaka at the back of that group trying to just make his way up into 6th position there in front of Neppa, but it's still Pezzoli on the 23 out in front from the 52 of Alcoba, and then it's Artigas on the 24 just behind the 96 of Delgado. These riders need to try and exit turn 6 well. You need to try and get a run down on this back straight. Use the slipstream to see if you're able to make a move down in towards turn 8. You can make a move into 8, but you need to be right alongside on the entry. Not quite close enough there. Yuki Kunii out in front on the number 33 machine. The gap 8 seconds between him and that scrap for 2nd position, and this is the scrap for 2nd position. Still Pezzoli out in front from Alcoba. Alcoba, is he going to try and get a run down the inside? Not quite close enough, but he's going to come under pressure now from Danny Delgado, the debutant in the CEV Moto3 Junior World Championship. Is he going to be able to try and make a move? It's all about how you exit turn 12 now. You come up the hill through the long left-hander. Are you going to be close enough to try and make a move down in towards the last corner? Are you going to be close enough to try and make sure that you're able to finish on the podium behind this man, Yuki Kunii? He's back on form. He didn't score points at the opening round of the year. He picks up 25 here in Valencia, and he's going to have another race in a few hours' time. The fight for second, though, as they come across the line, it looks like Alcoba's been able to take 2nd position just in front of Davide Pezzoli, and Danny Delgado just missing out on that first podium position, but 4th place on your debut in this class. Really impressive stuff. Only missed out by a handful of hundredths of a second there from finishing on the podium for Delgado on the 69. Yuki Kunii, though, able to claim the victory, his 2nd victory in the CEV Repsol Junior World Championship, and for Yuki Kunii, 8 seconds out in front at the flag. That really was an impressive performance. He took the lead in those early laps and was able then just to stretch out a lead to take the 25 points. Kunii well deserved to claim that victory. We saw him under pressure from Dennis Onchu all the way through this race, but unfortunately for Onchu, a technical failure robbed him of the chance of being able to fight it out. But Yuki Kunii able to take the victory. You can see Barry Boltus on the right hand side of the shot as well. Barry, of course, claimed the victory in the opening race of the season, but now it's Yuki Kunii's turn. Jeremy Alcoba in 2nd position, and for Alcoba, another podium here in the Moto3 class, and that'll be his 11th career podium in the CEV Repsol Championship. So good performance from Alcoba. He finished 4th in the championship last season with 5 podiums, and this was the move that he made at the last corner on Pizzoli, and nice and clean, nice and easy. But have a look at Pizzoli on the Leopard bike. If he's able to try and use his run all the way to the line, it actually looked like Alcoba ran out all the way onto the green paint on the exit of that corner as well. So was he outside the track limits, and is that something to be keeping an eye on? But Pizzoli, 3rd position there on the number 23 machine. He can be pretty pleased with himself as well. 16 championship points for the Italian rider to at least give himself that opportunity in race 2 to really build on this. Race 2 is going to be at 2 o'clock local time as well, so round about 2.5 hours time for these Moto3 riders to get back out on track. Get back out on track will be Dennis Onshu as well, and he's going to try and make sure he can bring the fight to Yuki Kunii as well, because Kunii during this race, he was under pressure all the way through from Dennis Onshu. But for the number 33, as he comes back into pit lane, he can celebrate this one. 2nd race victory in the CEV Moto3 class, and this really was an impressive victory to be able to add to his Jerez success from last season. But for Yuki Kunii, the former Asia Talent Cup rider, he's really been able to have strong pace all the way through this weekend. He's looked good in every session, and that's why he's been able to take pole and the race victory here, and also the fastest lap as well. So a real set here for Yuki Kunii to try and build on for race 2 in a few hours time. Is he going to be able to have the full gentleman set all the way through this weekend? But for Yuki Kunii and his team, you can see what it means for the Asia Talent team to be able to take that victory. And as he came across the line, he was sure to make sure he was celebrating, because this really was an impressive performance from Yuki Kunii. Big look over his shoulder, and it's a big look over his shoulder because it was a big gap back to 2nd spot. It's not often in a Moto3 race that you see the race leaders stretch out such a big lead, but it was Kunii and Dennis Onshu that were able to open up an 8-second lead over the rest of the field and just battle with one another. But for Yuki Kunii to be able to claim this victory from Jeremy Alcoba and David Pizzoli that we can see down in Parc Ferme, really impressive stuff from the Japanese rider. And really impressive stuff from Alcoba and Pizzoli as well to be able to come out on top in that fight for 2nd position as well, because for both of those riders to get themselves onto the podium, really good scrap with that 5-rider group for 2nd, and it was Alcoba from Pizzoli and the debutant Danny Halgado just in front of Artigas and Yamanaka, with Stefano Neppa, the experienced rider in the group in terms of Moto3 World Championship experience, and he ended up finishing down in 7th spot. Neppa just losing out on that final lap of the race. Behind them, it was Alex View. Of course, View we've seen in the World Championship this year. He's been able to race the last 2 rounds in Coda and also in Argentina. He ended up in 8th spot, just in front of Barry Baltus, the race victor from Estoril, finishing in 9th, with Jason Dupasquier inside the top 10 as well. So good performance there from the Swiss rider. But for all these riders in that leading group, they've now got to think about this afternoon's race as well. But we'll be able to hear from Yuki Kunii down in Parc Ferme as well in just a couple of moments' time to see what the Japanese rider thinks of claiming that 2nd career victory in the CEV Repsol Moto3 Junior World Championship. So down to Yuki Kunii in Parc Ferme with Fran Wild.
So Yuki, incredible pace here in Valencia from pole and an amazing performance in that race. Congratulations, your 2nd CEV win.
So I'm just say I'm very happy, and thanks to my team, very good hard work throughout the weekend. So I had a good pace, and then I tried to push, then finally big gap. I'm very happy, and then so my friend today birthday, Tokuda, happy birthday, and thanks to my family. Thank you.
And a few words in Japanese as well, please.
そうスペースずっと良くて、最初から結構攻めてて、で途中すごいギャップができた時にもう自分のペースで行こうと思って、でとにかくずっと集中して走り切ってとても嬉しいです。ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Yeah, really good stuff there from Yuki Kunii, and you can see what it meant for him to be able to claim this victory. And here's the highlights from this race. You can see the 65 had to be taken off the grid at the start, but at the start of the race, keep an eye out for Dennis Öncü from second on the grid. Just as they went through the gears, he was able to make his way into the lead from Yuki Kunii, and Kunii was able just to try and go with Dennis Öncü in those early stages of the race before taking over the leadership of the race just on the end of the second lap. But you can see in the immediate start just how stretched out it was at the front of the field. That battle for third position started to bring through a lot of riders. That was what happened to Billy van Aert, just crashing out of this race. Of course, this is his debut in the CEV Moto3 Junior World Championship. He missed the opening round of the season in Estoril due to injury, but at the front of the field it was Öncü out in front. That's the Czech rider Racek crashing out of proceedings. But Öncü wasn't leading for too long, with Yuki Kunii able to get down the inside into the final corner. From that point onwards, Kunii led all the way, and Öncü kept him under pressure, kept him honest. But in that scrap for third position, as it was at the time, you could see there Dani Delgado on the 96, really impressive on his debut in the class. You could see that Öncü was looking over his shoulder quite a lot during that race. Maybe he was looking down just to see whether or not there was a problem with his bike. But for Öncü, there would be a technical problem at the end of the race. For Davide Pezzoli, you could see just making his way through the field. Good, clever ride from Pezzoli that would eventually net third position. But for Dennis Öncü, you can see just the heartbreak there for him and also for the IO team. And for Öncü, he's going to have the opportunity in just over 2 hours' time to get himself back on the grid and try and score his first points of the season. This is the scrap for what had become second position, and it had Pezzoli out in front from Jeremy Alcoba. But as Yuki Kunii took the race victory, second position was just about to be taken by Jeremy Alcoba down the inside into the final corner, and Alcoba and Pezzoli would have a run to the line, and ultimately Alcoba was able to come out just in front by 0.03 of a second from his Italian rival to claim second and 20 championship points in front of Pezzoli. Dani Delgado, the debutant, ended up in fourth position. Really impressive stuff from the Estrella Galicia rider to be able to finish inside the top 5 on his debut. So as we look down on the results, you can see Yuki Kunii able to claim that victory, 8 seconds clear of Alcoba and Pezzoli, with Delgado, the rookie, inside the top 4 in front of Artigas, the former European Talent Cup rider. Yamanaka Napa fell down that group. Alex Vieux might have plenty of experience in the Moto3 World Championship this season, but he ended up in 8th position, just in front of Barry Baltas, the race victor from the opening race of the season, with Jason De Pasquier inside the top 10. Hernandez Giral, Salvador Bertale and Max Cook made up the podium spots, the points paying spots, just in front of Super Mario Agi, and Agi finishing down in 16th, just in front of Andre, the Czech rider, and then Rodriguez and the rest of the field coming through. We had plenty of retirements though, and none more impactful than Dennis Öncü with that technical problem at the end of the race. Öncü ended up retiring. He's going to qualify on the front row of the grid for race 2 in a few hours' time, and he'll have the opportunity to try and bounce back and score the first points of his championship season. You can see the rest of the retirements there as well. Plenty of crashes during the course of this opening race of the day. So for all these riders, there's still plenty to learn and understand ahead of race 2 in a few hours' time. But if you're Yuki Kunii, you're able to stand up on the top step of the podium after race 1 here in Valencia, and really well deserved applause there for the Japanese rider. This really was a strong race from the number 33 to be able to make sure that he was able to get himself to the front of the group all the way through this race. And for Yuki Kunii, he was under pressure from Dennis Öncü, but he never blinked, and when Öncü had his technical problem, that was enough for Yuki Kunii to be able to stay out in front. And we heard from him down in Parc Ferme. You could see how happy he was. You can also see how happy he is on the top step of the podium. But with Davide Pezzoli able to claim that third position, nice podium finish for the former Supersport rider. Fran, you were down in Parc Ferme there with Yuki Kunii, and you could see how much it meant for Kunii to be able to claim that second victory of his career.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a bit of a relief in some ways as well after that tough opener in Estoril. Him to have 25 points in the bag, and obviously to be a winner as well is important in itself, and really kicking his campaign into gear now. I expect him to be a very, very strong rider throughout this season. And yeah, likewise, I guess the guys on the podium with him as well will be.
Yeah, first points of the season, first victory of the season for Yuki Kunii, and able to get his trophy for that race victory. And in a couple of moments' time, we'll be able to hear the Japanese national anthem from him as well. And a bit of a bonus there for Yuki Kunii as well with the novelty check. But let's hear the Japanese national anthem for Yuki Kunii.
aplauso para los 4 premiados. Fabrizio,
So the Japanese
Davide,
national
Jeremy,
anthem there
Yuki
for our
Kunii
race
como
victor,
vencedor.
Yuki
Y ahora
Kunii.
llega
Will we
ya el
hear that
momento de
again
la
in a couple of hours' time,
celebración
Fran?
con el Prosecco por
I'd say
todo
there's a fairly
alto
good chance looking at both,
el
obviously,
podio
his
de
race-winning
Ricardo
form, but also his
Tormo.
pace in that one. We'll have to see what Dennis Onshu can do later once he's back in the mix. So here we have the championship standings after 2 races this season. Baltas hanging on at the top there, but only by a point now.
Yeah, from Alcoba and Artigas, and Yuki Kunii with his first points of the season moves himself up into 4th in the championship standings. Pizzoli also with his first points, and they're on the podium. Good to see Danny Halgado as well, though. Debutant able to get himself up into the top 7 in the championship standings. Could be interesting to see what he can do in this afternoon's race. And then the rest of the championship standings as well. You can see Yamanaka inside the top 10. He was also inside the top 10 during today's race, and that scrap for a 2nd spot. We've 23 riders scoring points so far this season. Will we have another few riders adding their names to the list today? You'd imagine that Dennis Onshu should be able to add himself on with his first championship points of the season.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to get whatever problem it was sorted out and make sure it doesn't reoccur in race 2. Bit of a heartbreaker for the Turk there. But yeah, a couple of surprising names down that list a little bit. Max Koffler obviously has shown much better pace than his place in the standings currently suggests due to some crashes. And then also, yeah, Onshu missing. And Aleix View as well. Expected a little bit more of a challenge from him at the moment because he's obviously a veteran.
Yeah, definitely expected more from Aleix View during the course of this race, but we'll see what he can do during the course of this afternoon's race. Race 2 at 2 p.m. local time, so 1 o'clock UK time.